The basketball court is a battlefield where talent meets tenacity, and NaLyssa Smith is no stranger to this reality. Standing tall as one of the brightest young stars in the WNBA, Smith has carved a path of brilliance with her dynamic play and fierce determination. But even the most promising careers can take unexpected turns, and for Smith, that turn came hard and fast, leaving her in a storm she never saw coming. The betrayal that shook her world didn't just come from a rival. Oh no, it was much deeper than that. It was personal, close to home, and it involved one of the most intense matchups in her career: Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. What unfolded between these two athletes and their teams has become a saga for the ages, leaving fans and analysts alike stunned by the gravity of what went down. But let's rewind and piece together this fiery drama before diving into the implications that left Smith and the Fever in a precarious position. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. NaLyssa Smith's rise to fame was anything but ordinary. Drafted by the Indiana Fever with high expectations, she became the player to watch, the one who could turn the tide for a struggling franchise. Known for her work ethic, resilience, and basketball IQ, Smith immediately became a key player on a team fighting to reclaim its glory. Her combination of skill and energy on the court made her not just a standout rookie, but a potential leader of the future. Fans of the Fever were excited. Finally, there was hope that their team could rise from mediocrity with Smith as the cornerstone. Smith herself seemed destined for greatness, but fate had other plans, throwing a curveball that no one could have predicted. Enter Caitlin Clark. If you follow basketball, you've heard the name. Clark, the star from Iowa, known for her deep shooting range, playmaking ability, and swagger on the court, was another young player making waves, though her trajectory was a bit different. Clark's style was brash, confident, and sometimes polarizing. People either loved her for her audacity or hated her for it, but no one could deny her skill. As fate would have it, Clark and Smith would meet in a high-stakes WNBA game, one that would change everything. On the surface, it seemed like just another matchup between two rising stars, but behind the scenes, tensions were boiling. The drama wasn't about who would win or lose the game. It was about personal stakes that ran deeper than anyone knew. Smith had been putting everything on the line for the Fever, working tirelessly to pull her team out of the bottom ranks, while Clark, known for her confidence, had her sights set on proving she could dominate in the pros just like she had in college. Their styles were different, but their ambition was the same, and when they clashed, it wasn't just basketball. It was pride, grit, and, as it turns out, betrayal. Rumors swirled before the game that something was brewing behind the scenes. Whispers of a huge bet made on the outcome of this matchup made the rounds, though no one knew the details. What we do know is that, for Smith, this bet wasn't just about money or bragging rights. It was something far more personal, a wager that involved not only her performance but her loyalty to the Fever. Smith was known for her dedication, but this bet put her in a position where any misstep would be seen as a massive failure, a crack in her unshakable facade. And then in the heat of the game, that crack began to widen. The game between Clark and Smith was intense from the start. Clark's sharp shooting and Smith's commanding presence in the paint made for a thrilling back and forth. But there was something off about Smith's play that night. Normally composed and aggressive, she seemed hesitant at key moments. Perhaps it was the pressure of the bet hanging over her, or maybe the psychological warfare Clark was so good at employing. Clark had this way of getting into her opponents' heads, making them second-guess themselves while she rained threes from the logo. And on that night, it worked. Smith began to falter, missed shots, slow reactions, uncharacteristic turnovers. It was as if the weight of the world was on her shoulders. Clark, on the other hand, thrived in the chaos, feeding off the energy of the moment and delivering dagger after dagger. The crowd watched in awe as Clark pulled ahead, leading her team with a kind of performance that would cement her as one of the future faces of the WNBA. But for Smith, this was something far worse than a mere loss. As the game slipped away from her and the Fever, it became apparent that the huge bet in question wasn't just about the game itself. It was about her role on the team and her future as a leader. And in that moment, with the stakes so high, Smith found herself crushed under the weight of it all. The aftermath of that night saw a flurry of commentary, with analysts and fans dissecting every play, every decision, every misstep. But the harshest blow came not from the media or even the fans. It came from within the Fever organization. The betrayal that Smith felt wasn't just tied to her performance on the court, but to how her teammates and coaches responded afterward. In the locker room, Smith was expecting support, solidarity. After all, she had given everything to this team. but instead she was met with silence, cold looks, and a growing distance between herself and the others. The bet, as it turns out, had created a rift, and now Smith was on the outside looking in. Clark may have been the spark that ignited this situation, but the real damage was done by those closest to Smith. The Fever, a team she had fought so hard for, had turned their backs on her in her time of need. This betrayal was more than just losing a game. It was about trust being broken. Smith, a player who had prided herself on loyalty and teamwork, was now left questioning everything. Who could she trust? Where did she stand within the organization? The emotional toll of this betrayal weighed heavily on her, and it was clear that things would never be the same. This betrayal had wider implications, not just for Smith, but for the Indiana Fever as a whole. A team is only as strong as its unity, and once that unity is fractured, the effects can ripple throughout the organization. The Fever, already struggling to find their footing, now had to deal with the fallout of this internal conflict. Players were taking sides, and Smith, once seen as the future of the franchise, was now in a precarious position. The trust that had been lost would not be easily regained, and the tension within the team was palpable. What made this betrayal sting even more for Smith was that it came at a time when she was on the cusp of greatness. She had shown flashes of brilliance throughout the season, leading the Fever in key games, battling through adversity, and proving that she could be a star in the WNBA. But now, with this betrayal hanging over her, everything she had worked for was in jeopardy. How do you bounce back when the very people who are supposed to have your back are the ones who let you down the most? Clark, for her part, walked away from the game with her reputation intact and her confidence at an all-time high. She had played her role perfectly, delivering on the court and getting into Smith's head just enough to throw her off balance. But for Smith, the fallout was far more personal. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about trust, loyalty, and a harsh reality that, in professional sports, betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. As the dust settled after that fateful game, one thing was clear. NaLyssa Smith's path to redemption would be a long and difficult one. The betrayal she experienced was not something that could be easily forgotten or forgiven, and it would take a monumental effort for her to regain the trust of her teammates, coaches, and fans. But if there's one thing we've learned about Smith, it's that she doesn't back down from a challenge. She's been knocked down before, and she's always found a way to rise again. This time, though, the stakes are higher than ever, and the question remains, can she overcome the emotional and psychological toll of this betrayal and reclaim her place as the leader of the Indiana Fever? The implications of this event will be felt for seasons to come. For the Fever, this was more than just a game. It was a turning point that could define the trajectory of the franchise. With Smith at the center of this storm, the organization must now navigate its way through a complex web of loyalty, trust, and ambition. The players, coaches, and even the front office will have to make decisions that could either repair the damage or further fracture the team. And for Smith, the road ahead is uncertain. But one thing is for sure, she will not forget this betrayal anytime soon. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.